You're welcome back to the Global Business Report. It's World Population Day, a day set aside by the United Nations to celebrate more than 7 billion people on Earth. It is also a reminder of the stark reality of the basic needs and deprivation of this critical global mass. Nigeria's peculiar situation is the growing threat of food insecurity, brought about by incessant attacks on mainly food-producing areas by herdsmen. For more on this issue, I'm joined by Chairman, Agric and Agro-Allied Lagos Chamber of Commerce, Africanfarmer Mogaji. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you.
All right. Interesting name, by the way.
Thank you.
Very good. Now, on account of Nigeria's rising population, how would you rate efforts over time on food self-sufficiency production, as it were?
Well, over the years, there's been a lot of programs, projects designed to ensure that we're food secure. However, there's been a constant implementation.
So in regard, what are the main issues there, apart from the implementation?
Following through on the procedures and processes designed in the policy documents that the projects were designed around. And a crucial factor is when you run a project for a year, 2 years, it needs to be re-evaluated and tweaked a bit. But what we normally would see, it's the document that you started with. No improvement, no evaluation. Well, some evaluation, but it's not reflected in continuous implementation. So implementation has been a challenge, and it's still a challenge.
Very good. So there has to be a lot of dynamism in policy inauguration and initiation as well. Very good. Now, are farmers and stakeholders getting enough fund lately? Is it getting to them directly? We've seen CBN's intervention lately, but is that enough?
Well, to be fair, funds are getting to farmers and new entrants. This administration with the CBN governor really getting involved in agriculture beyond his normal portfolio.
And that's what we just discussed recently.
It's really a welcome development because before it used to be that the CBN governor sits in his office and disburses funds. But right now, he's actively involved, and I've been to the headquarters a couple of times. Everybody is up and doing because they know that the man upstairs would ask. So the funds are getting there. And so there are two paradigms to this.
All right.
And there's a side of the story that is not being told, which is the farmers are not faithful. Many of them. So they get these funds from the 200,000, 300,000, up to the hundreds of millions. Many of them are not faithful.
But this is quite a revelation. If many of them are not faithful, what sanctions, are there any modes of sanctions to be meted out on such a scenario?
That's where the challenge is. There's the tax funds. All the people who collected the money and have not repaid, we've not heard anything that happened to them. That's one. Two, the farmers. The farmers are getting inputs because the policy around the CBN, anchor borrowers, and co, they don't give cash to the farmers. They give inputs to the farmers. So the farmers, after a long time, are getting these things. However, the farmers are selling these fertilizers, and they didn't tell me. I'm a field person.
All right.
I've seen many of those things happen. But also, it starts well, but when you begin to get to the election year, then things begin to change because the politicians have to be very careful. And so first year, second year, from third year, you begin to see the farmers also. They understand. Many times we think they are not educated, they are exposed and enlightened. And so we see all those things play out. And so you see rice increase and it drops. All the things start, but election year, especially election year, it's always a tough year for food security in Nigeria.
Very good. I'd like us to delve more on the input. You said since it's a cashless incentive to the farmers, what kind of inputs actually is being given to them to make them do their work?
Seeds, improved seeds, fertilizers, chemicals, and in fact, government is also trying to step into the organic production.
All right.
Water pumps for irrigation, which means that the farmers have no break in their production at that small scale level.
Yeah.
So basically all the production inputs. So what happens is they bring in all the actors, insurance, ADP, that is agri-development organizer officers. Yeah. So they bring all of the stakeholders together to actually come around to say this is the exact amount of money required. Yeah. And so the farmer representative also is there. And so they set that expenditure production cost and they disburse twice.
Very good. And still talking about the issue of rising population and the need to feed the public. Now, the issue of proper storage and harvested crop is still lingering. Would you suggest private sector participation in setting up specialized, storage facilities? We're not seeing much of that lately.
That's the only way to go. It's the business of private sector to make money. And so we can have warehouses converted into these cold chain storages. Yeah. In India, I've witnessed a lot of them. Potatoes, it's private sector that does that, but power is crucial. Right. But there's an organization called GAIN. GAIN also is providing solar cold rooms, refrigerated rooms, to be able to take care of post-harvest losses, and they're doing fine. It's just started, especially the cold chain, the cold rooms, but it will increase and improve. There are quite a lot of grants in the country also aimed at that, but the private sector is not paying attention to that. Many people are rushing into production. They read the documents, they rush into production just to discover that they are part of the statistics again. So the private sector needs to look at after production. What next? That's where the real money and value addition. And I would say power is a major challenge, and we've known that for a while. So adding value immediately is crucial, and you can run on diesel. Some Asians come to the country and they plan, they know there's no power, and they fund it, and they make money, and they take the money out of the country. So we need people, also Nigerians, to come in with that mindset. You know the challenges, develop a plan around it, never be in a rush in the agri sector. That's where the private sector in Nigeria is having an issue. They want it like ATM machine, cash, fast, so it's always long-term. So if you come in with a mindset of long-term and provide what needs to be provided, even though it's not your business, but you want to make money, then you get it done. The private sector, unfortunately, mostly foreigners who come, understand the process, do that due diligence, and you find them in the country for years.
But what about stakeholders? So I'm talking about the farmers now. Yes, it's a very good idea, the analysis you just made there, but, is this idea resonating with them as well?
Yes, it's resonating with them. However, there's this handout mentality that most of the farmers have. Farmers should form formidable cooperatives.
All right.
There are a lot of cooperatives that are not functional.
I remember in those days there used to be this idea of cooperatives, but they're almost non-existent now.
Yeah, so in any country you see develop agriculture, the platform that they developed on is cooperative.
All right.
So we need cooperatives not just to produce, they've come together. In Nigeria, most of the cooperatives come together to access government grants or developmental handouts. Yeah. But in countries like Colorado, Hungary, the farmers, some of them will stop production and focus on marketing. Right. Some will focus on input distribution and sales. So we need more cooperatives to come in the value chain beyond production, and that's where the solution is.
Very good. Now, let's take a look at other issues here in terms of education and modernization of the agriculture techniques such as mechanized farming. How would you rate Nigeria currently? Are we making any headway there?
We're not. We're not, because we've not paid attention to extension service in terms of education, and that's the extension is the lifeblood of any agri value chain. All right. So we need to invest more in extension services. Probably convert almost all the coppers into some form of extension agents.
That means you have to provide some kind of land in terms of infrastructure for that as well.
The infrastructure is already there. NYSC is a platform where they are mostly accommodated across the country. So we need to utilize them now to go into the value chain of agriculture. There's no discipline that they studied that does not have a place, a functional place, role in the agri sector. So we need those to come in. Then we're not paying attention to that education because we pay attention to production, which is the doing. But education and technology, if I were the Minister of Agriculture, what I would do is to fund that education value addition and not giving inputs. Or the silos are empty, I always say it, and we want to concession them out. Yeah. Now, but if you subsidize the market, production will take care of itself. Farmers don't necessarily want all these inputs. They will do this production. In developed countries, what they do is they subsidize, they mop up the market and push it to other countries. But they don't put money in subsidizing primary production because it gives a lot of loopholes for people to, some people would approve the people that will get the contracts. Yeah. So it already created a loophole. But the purchase, if they buy and store for our food security, we're not food secure. If it doesn't rain for 6 months or 4 months or even 3 months, then we you don't want to think about it.
And we also have to grapple the issues of herdsmen grazing and the...
Yeah, so we need most of the incentives. Yeah. The CBN needs to put in more fund in mopping the grains off because when there's food insecurity, it's mostly around grains.
Okay.
The rice, the maize, those are 2 soybean. We need to store them in reserves now. So the Anchor Borough and Co., they need to retweak it to look at, okay, we'll fund the process and we'll buy off. So when the silos are not filled, then we know that, oh, okay, there's a deficit. Where did this money go? You can track it. So from the beginning, if we want to produce 10 million metric tons of soya, and we have silos that can accommodate the 10 million metric tons. Yeah. So when the silo is not full, you know that something is wrong and you look into it.
All right, in 30 seconds, where do you see the role of technology in all of this?
Technology is huge.
Yeah.
That's the next level. And technology can be adapted and adopted at small, medium, and commercial level. We need to begin to reorientate our farmers and focus on new entrants, new, younger youths, not necessarily the older people. It has to be strategic. It has to be deliberate.
Indeed, and on that note, African Farmer Mogaji, I'd like to thank you for your thoughts on those issues. A pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.